Hey everyone, welcome to another video. I am Mike B in desperate need of a haircut, but I'm too lazy and kind of procrastinating too much to actually get that done. So maybe I'll get it cut, maybe I'll become a dirty hippie and grow it down to my ass. Who knows? Anyway, today we're going to be talking about something that is brought up a ton in comments whenever camouflage is brought up, and it's actually a pretty interesting topic, and that's of urban camouflage and what my thoughts are on it and what the best one is. You know how I feel about that question if you've been watching my channel for a bit. Anyway, so urban camouflage, that's the one type of camouflage that really very few militaries actually have that fourth pattern. You know, you've got woodland, desert, snow, and then urban is kind of the fourth. It's like plasma, you know, the fourth state of matter, if you will. That very few militaries actually have official patterns adopted. The U.S. military, for one, has experimented with many different patterns. Most notably that I can remember, and one of my personal favorites that we'll be talking about in a little bit, is the urban T-block or mount or whatever. There's a bunch of names for it. I call it T-block. Here's a picture of the pattern in use. And then if you want to know more about it, just Google it. There's a lot out there. This is what the actual kind of uniform looks like without, being worn and all that stuff. So the pattern was kind of designed to break up the outline. That's what they had in mind when they had that weird the T-blocks, like little, they're geometric shapes within a blob of gray on a lighter gray background. Now, if you look at, what was it, Operation Urban Warrior, it took place in 1999. They were in places like San Francisco, notably. And if you take a look, if you could dig up some pictures, I haven't seen them in a while, and I didn't know where to dig them up for this video, so I'm sorry I was lazy. But if you ever want to go down this rabbit hole of this particular pattern in urban camouflage in general, you'll learn a lot about Operation Urban Warrior in 1999 in the US. And dig up some pictures, and you can see that this pattern is actually quite effective at blending in with buildings and stuff like that. It could have also been selectively photographed because at that point that pattern was in the trials stage and somebody might have wanted it adopted, but that was pre-UCP days, so it didn't actually get pushed through, even though, whatever. Anyway, so I'll leave that out of there. So the difficult thing about cities, urban camouflage, is what is urban? Is urban a suburban neighborhood out in, outside of the city, but there's still a ton of houses, but they're all pretty colors and there's a lot of green and all that stuff, trees and parks and all that stuff? Or are you talking downtown Manhattan, on, I don't know, I've never been there, so I don't know what streets or whatever, but I don't know, go to Times Square. I mean, what are you talking about with urban? That's the thing. And the problem with cities, like if you're talking downtown, is most of the colors down there are going to be man-made. There's going to be trees, of course, that are put there by people. And I noticed that when I look at a picture of like New York City or Chicago, I have been there, or Atlanta, places, LA, you name it, there are so many different colors, and it's almost impossible to come up with one pattern that would work in all of those patterns, especially when you're moving through streets and all that stuff. So, and what's weird is those cities are going to differ from cities in, say, Central and South America, Eastern Asia, Western Asia, Europe. Cities are different all over the world. So if you're talking about your typical, city, like New York City, we'll just use as an example. Everybody knows about that place. What I see mainly are a lot of grays, beiges, and oddly enough, kind of a rust red, kind of a brick color, if you will, but it's not always bricks. Being the most predominant in like a residential area, even with the really built up areas like the industrial places where they have big skyscrapers and shit. I know Manhattan, probably what I'm talking about. It's still a lot of the same colors at ground level, right? So what's interesting is there are so many colors. When you're talking about like being in a woodland environment, okay, generally speaking, it's going to be a relatively similar color scheme no matter where you go. It's going to have a lot of green in it, green and brown perhaps. Desert environment, depending on where you are. I mean, you can have some light shrubbery, but it's going to be more advantageous to blend in with the beiges and pinks than, having a darker woodland pattern. But it's going to be relatively similar, right? You don't have to go as far, or you have to go a lot farther for the environment to actually have to start changing most of the time, right? There are exceptions, and a bunch of people point out in the comments, well, I live here and it's, hopping to skip this way, it's desert, and I get that. I'm saying the majority of the time, like in the world, woodland is going to be more green and desert's going to be more tan, just in general, okay? Now, the reason I'm bringing those kind of really simplified points up is because in the city, in the heart of the city, you can have a drab gray spot on one street. You turn a block, and all of a sudden everything's painted in bright colors, or it's just white, or it's got light colored concrete versus being darker colored concrete. It can be pitch black. It can be painted brown. It can be all these different things. There's so many. It's basically all of the natural colors and a lot of non-natural colors in one small area. So if you're asking what the best urban camouflage is, all jokes aside, like a t-shirt and shorts, it's good for blending into society. But say society crumbles and, we've got this post-apocalyptic wasteland world that a lot of you guys fantasize about, when you're at night, oh, it'd be so cool. So there's nobody going to be on the streets, so you're going to have to wear something that blends into your surroundings. Well, in an urban environment, again, all those points I'm just kind of abridging this video because some of you guys like the long form, free form rant videos. Some of you guys like more succinct videos. So I'm going to try to find that happy medium. So everybody's happy. Well, nobody's ever going to be happy. Anyway, so in my observation for United States cities, because you get to the suburbs, I would wear something more like this if I was out in the suburbs. But we're talking urban, any like city, not just urban as in people live there in just, kind of more dense situations, but we're talking like cities. I would be rocking, honest to God, I would be rocking something like UCP Delta. Regular UCP, I would stay away from at all costs unless you're on the moon or on that picture of the guy's couch. But UCP Delta's got that gray, khaki, and that kind of red tint to it that I see a lot in cities, and it's kind of a muted color scheme. Now, the bad part is this shit's not surplus, and it's really expensive. I have a bunch of the material, but I have nobody that'll make uniforms for less than $500 for a custom uniform. But that's kind of a pattern that I would personally feel comfortable wearing in an urban environment. Now, if I could take the T block and modify that to having the splotches on the that are surrounding immediately the geometric shapes, I would turn those into this color brown, or this rust brown or whatever, and then leave the gray as it is. Maybe darken up the overall background gray. And I think that would be a relatively effective pattern for urban environments too. What else works? Okay, so the Woodland M81 style that you've seen, that's got gray, black, and white, that's the color scheme. I think that would be way too light colored most of the time. You need something that, gray is very good. Gray is a universally good color if you want to just add concealment, because gray is the least recognizable color by the human eye. What I mean by that is, if you're looking at something, right? Say you're looking for people, your eye is more likely to skip over a gray because it's such a neutral hue or shade. Some people don't want to call it a color anyway. That your eye is more likely to kind of glance over and then maybe go back to like look at a shape. That's why the Germans wore it. That's why a lot of militaries have gray, or kind of an olive drab mixed with a gray, is because it's a really effective concealment color, if you will. Now, when you mix gray with these other colors, you want it to kind of be more as subdued as possible to get that effect of having, it skip over. Now, here's the thing. You're in a city, there is some heavy fighting, whatever, rubble happens. Well, what color is rubble going to be? I don't know, concrete, and then whatever else was in there, carpeting. So you're going to have to take all those things into consideration. It's the hardest environment to pick a camouflage for damn sure, because it's a concrete jungle. It's man-made, right? It's not nature where it's can be influenced and kind of messed with a little bit by man. Like say you've got a fob or something. Most of those tones are going to be from the surrounding area, and they're going to be mostly earth tones. Whereas in the city, you can have synthetic colors and then earth tones on the next block, like I just said. So there's really no cut and dry answer. So as far as people wondering what my thoughts are on urban camouflage, this is kind of a summarized yet somewhat detailed version, because I don't really sit there and think about it a lot, because it's not something I would ever want to do. I would never voluntarily go into a city and start fighting, but that's suicide in my opinion. That's the worst place you can be. If you thought Stalingrad was bad, something like that kicks off in New York City or Chicago or LA or San Francisco or somewhere, Atlanta, St. Louis, it's going to make Stalingrad look like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, because it's going to be so ridiculously modernized and so much more lethal and just stagnated and slow and miserable and just not good. So that's why I don't even think about what I would wear for urban camouflage, except for, a couple patterns that I'm like, aesthetically they look cool. Like UCP Delta is okay, and then the T block just looks cool. So Yeah, I honestly think you could really just wear almost whatever you wanted as long as it was a subdued kind of uniform. Subdued clothing, gray's really good all around for most environments, and then urban, I would say gray would probably be your best bet. Something gray, something subdued, but I don't know. Again, that's really all I have to say about that. So thank you for watching. If you made it this far, type in T-Block. I made it this far in the comments. And yeah, I appreciate you watching. If you're new to the channel or whatever, even if you're not, if you would consider becoming a supporter of the content that you so like because you are watching this, there's two ways you can do that. Is one, become a Patreon supporter. The link to that is in the description. Or you can become a channel member now on YouTube. And $5 a month or more on either platform gets you access to my Discord server, which is really fun and pretty cool, entertaining. A lot of cool information is exchanged there. And I think that's where I actually got the idea for this video. We were talking about urban stuff, or I was talking to somebody about urban stuff. I don't know. Just too many people to talk to. I can't keep track. My old little brain. Not old brain. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to consider doing that, it allows me to do a lot of content that I can't do if I'm just funding this straight out of pocket. So crowdfunding really helps. This year's been awesome. Been able to do a lot of really cool content. Anyway, if you can't support the channel financially, that's totally fine. I get that. Just make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share the video because I have a channel that involves scary guns and other things that, you know, YouTube probably algorithmically doesn't like me to make videos of, and I'm not a priority creator. So sharing the video actually helps little guys like me get out there and be able to, you know, kind of spread the good word and educate people. And if you thought this video was interesting, go for it. But yeah, you can support me all those ways too. So anyway, thank you for watching. Yes, it's a rambly video. This is what I do. This is if I don't have bullet points in front of me. This is how it goes. It's very scatterbrained. The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.